First alert just into our newsroom from Fond du Lac. Two teenage boys were taken into custody after someone reported a person showing a gun at a restaurant. Police were called to the McDonald's on East Johnson Street around 5:15 Tuesday night. Initial reports were a customer pointed what appeared to be a gun at an employee in the drive-thru area. Witnesses told police that two people were inside a restaurant earlier asking concerning questions about an employee. Officers quickly identified and found the 16 and 17-year-old Fond du Lac boys and their vehicle on North Boardman Street. Police were able to stop their vehicle in the area of Portage and Butler Street. One of the suspects is believed to have sent threatening messages to the victim. The two boys were soon after taken into custody, and two realistic BB guns were found inside the suspect's residence. Both could face several charges.